Yay,
live.
okay, we're at part two now. So let's go. Let's go.
All right, let's do part two.
Okay,
Abraham, go ahead.
okay, part two. Okay, Justin, you go first.
Um, so so in part one we talked about the concessions that the government has given and whether we buy it or not, and obviously that remains to be determined. Um, I think for our purposes, um, I, I- you know, it's one thing to comment on the actual Hong Kong situation, but the other thing is that all of us are Chinese Canadians based in Vancouver. And so maybe one of the things, because we did wake up at 3 a.m. to watch um, this dialogue, and so certainly it means something to us. And so maybe we should talk about what does it mean to us, and why is it important that we watch this, and what did we as Chinese Canadians in Vancouver get out of this?
Hmm.
Ooh, you need research
Esther, you want to go first?
material. Okay, so what does it mean to me? Okay, so
I
yes,
mean, why did you wake up at 3 a.m.?
I woke up at 3 a.m. because I knew this was a really, really historic moment. I mean, again, it's been like what 3 or 4 weeks since the this whole protest movement thing started, and it needed to come to some sort of a very, very big milestone. And since we've been spending hours and hours just chatting online, going through feeds, updating on what's been happening, finally there is a face-to-face between the government and the students. And I'm glad that it's happening, so that's why I'm watching it from afar. And as a Canadian who has a lot of ties with Hong Kong, I mean, like I lived there for 4 months before, and I went back there for months, and I really, really wanted to actually move back to Hong Kong for a while. Um, there's a part of me that's still in Hong Kong. A lot of my good friends are still there, and since good friends are there, I always get stuff on my Facebook feed, having people express their opinions about Hong Kong, and most of them are the ones who support democracy. And hey, I mean, I support democracy, having been born and raised in Canada, and having participated in all the elections, voting. Um, I want to be able to share, I guess, my Canadianized values of um, democracy. Maybe not Canadianized, but just the value of being able to speak my voice freely without being judged or jailed. I really appreciate that, and I want to be able to support people who don't currently have those rights and freedoms right now, to be able to access that. So for me to be able to see the talks was huge, and I'm just glad that we're debriefing it right now. It just shows just how great technology has been in being able to connect us in real time to events, and knowing that events that happen in one part of the world can directly and immediately impact another part of the world is very exciting.
Awesome, Abraham.
Okay, I would say that watching this on TV live, it was amazing because we saw, and then actually I will be able to see how the audience was reacting. Audiences were reacting in different areas, and especially they're showing the 6:30 news live right next to right side by side on the TVB live feed. So I think when we're talking about it, it's really amazing. For me, it's really significant because I grew up in Hong Kong. I moved to Canada 11 years ago, and I'm still really attached to Hong Kong in some capacity. So I think it's really important for me to watch it, especially I was participating. I was part of the crowd in. I was there, 500,000 people who were marching from Victoria Park to Central in 2003, July 1st. That was one of the most defining moments for my life. I said, I, I promised to myself that I will be like that to fight for democracy. And today I'm still doing that in here and there.
Sure, that sounds good.
How about you,
Okay,
Justin?
um,
Oh, okay.
Justin, yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's very strange. I often say that um, So I spent 9 years at UBC, at the University of British Columbia, and I did 3 degrees there. And one of the things that I always sort of joke about is that I majored in Hong Kong, um, in all 3 of my degrees. My first degree was in history, and my honors thesis was on the comedy films of Hogunman and Hogungi, Michael Hui and Sam Hui, in the 1970s. My master's thesis was on transnational Hong Konger church in Richmond, and my dissertation, my PhD dissertation, was on how Cantonese-speaking Protestants engage the public sphere in Vancouver, San Francisco, and Hong Kong. So I think for me, the fact that I was on Hong Kong at UBC just speaks to the connection that Vancouver um, has to Hong Kong, and so I think, yeah, it's meaningful for me as a Chinese Canadian, to sort of watch these debates between two very different views of what Hong Kong society should be like. Abraham, you were going to say something.
Yes, I'm going to say something about. Okay, first of all, the news that is coming back from Hong Kong right now is um, HKFS. They're going to have a press conference later in the night.
Okay.
So I think they're just having dinner right now from the feed that I saw on Facebook. They're having dinner right now, so it'll be later. So
it's well deserved. It's a very well deserved dinner.
Yeah, and by the way, I think what I'm seeing right now. Let's move a bit to the significance of this conversation, because I think for us when we're doing this kind of post game analysis, what we should say. I mean, what I'm seeing is HKFS has a really strong support from the ground tonight.
Great.
I think they have a lot of people who are not at the beginning, who are not buying into, who are not buying into their argument. I think after 2 nights they're shifting into their argument. They were shifting into support students, and in a way it feels the
Has just said that HKFS has advanced their argument tonight, and certainly we've been watching it too. So I was wondering how you feel about the argument.
Okay, so let me continue. I think my videos just keep crashing all the time. As a matter of fact, I think that the student will keep having the support, and the Occupy movement will keep going on, or even escalate because of the negotiation. And then another thing that I need to comment is.
Wait, let's hold on, Abraham. Let's do one comment at a time. Let's give the mic to Esther.
Okay.
Can you ask your question again, Justin?
Yeah. Abraham just commented that the arguments from the HKFS. This is kind of the first time that we've sort of seen a comprehensive argument from the Federation. So, how did you find the arguments? Were they convincing?
They were definitely convincing. They gave a lot of the on the ground reports and stories about people who had participated. I remember there was one story about I think it was Alex who had a conversation with a younger, I think, man, who said that he was prepared to go out there and protest for democracy, being prepared to face bullets from the police. Like, this is die-hard stuff. And I think it was, I forgot his name too, but there were definitely other students who were very, very passionately sharing these stories and bringing up again how all these protesters were spending night after night after night after night camped out, facing police, being there day after day after being attacked by police, by pepper spray, rubber bullets, batons. Again, all they had was an umbrella. They brought these points up while the government, it seemed seemed to me unsympathetic, and the government was basically um, reasserting policy and the law, and didn't seem to really care, in my opinion, about the sufferings that were experienced by the protesters. At least that was the sense I got.
So I have a question for you. I mean, this just occurred to me. You out of the three of us, I think you have probably the most experience community organizing in Vancouver. And so my question is, the government is really pushing a sort of public opinion sort of agenda, saying, they've received so and so many petitions, and so many different sectors of civil society have varying opinions, and the students respond with anecdotes and sort of qualitative evidence. And so I suppose what I'm wondering, from you is how convincing is anecdotal qualitative evidence? What is the strength of qualitative evidence, in the face of the sort of quantitative approach that's being taken by the government?
I think it's actually very, very strong, because these are stories, again, from the front line of people who have experienced um, being powerless, and actually have, again, like stories to tell about their encounters with the government. Yes, maybe they don't have all these hard numbers, but they have had encounters with other people who have had experiences with them. My guess is that the government hasn't actually been on the ground, hasn't actually talked with the people who are camping in tents, who are actually encountering, or sorry, what do you call it, facing police. So these are actually stories of people from the front lines, and there's a big disconnect between government, who may have connections to the elite who are not on the front lines. Um, Sorry, I'm just kind of missing my train of thought here. It's very early in the morning. So,
No, I think that's a very good answer. And maybe I'll ask the same question to Abraham. Abraham, you have I suppose you have some experience, with policymaking in Hong Kong. Certainly you weren't a policymaker in Hong Kong, but you certainly have connections to policymakers in Hong Kong. So I was wondering, how much does qualitative anecdotal evidence, how much do policymakers in Hong Kong sort of weigh qualitative anecdotal evidence as opposed to sort of quantitative surveys that, say, Carrie Lam was referencing?
Okay, I would try to answer what I'm trying to. First of all, I need to understand what you're trying to, what you mean. But I would try to answer right now.
Sure.
First of all, I think the policymakers, they are not really taking care so much of the so-called qualitative evidence at this moment, because when once or even like national and moral education, I think that is a much more better samples we can use it though. The policymakers, they don't really care so much about that, as long as uh, the interest, the especially the material interest or political interest has been protected. That is the major point for them. It's not so much about taking care of what is happening on the ground, because what's happening on the ground to them is not really relevant. As long as they can please the tycoons, then that's what matters to them the most. That's what I see from the policymakers in terms of making policy for the past 17 years. It didn't change a bit.
Right. So what you're saying is that the policymakers in Hong Kong are actually not that interested in public opinion.
They don't. They don't. I mean, they have to pretend they're interested in public opinion, because otherwise, I mean, as a matter of fact, don't they don't really interested in public opinion. And remember, Donald Tsang, the former chief executive, he said something. He said, I don't care about public opinion. I see the public opinion as clouds. He infamously said that he saw public opinion as clouds that flies by.
Certainly, that was my sense when I did research in Hong Kong as well. I didn't do so much research with the government, but I did do research with activists on the ground, both socially conservative and politically progressive activists, and both sides, even though they disagreed on the issues, they certainly agreed that they had to make a big noise to the government, in public hearings and in protests, in order for the government to even hear them.
Yes,
This
thank you.
was this was true of the Article 23 demonstration, but it was also true in the socially conservative groups like 美光社 and 新文化學會, the Truth Light Society and the Hong Kong Sex Culture Society, in opposing the sexual orientation discrimination ordinance. So both socially conservative and politically progressive activists can find common ground in knowing that the government that they need to make a big stir before government really takes into account public opinion.
So we see the rise of more protests and more public rallies. That is the direct result of the government ignoring public opinions. That
Sure.
is the direct result of that, in fact.
Yep, I agree with you.
I think another thing that I would ask, certainly religion didn't play a huge part in today's discussion because, it was a fairly secular dialogue. But, one of the things that we did do recently in Vancouver was to respond to comments made in the Vancouver Sun by the CEO of a company called Company of Disciples, Jonathan Chan. And so, his comments were very secular, and we responded rather Christianly. And so I was wondering, because, publicly we are Christians in Vancouver, whether there's a sort of Christian view that of these dialogues today, just sort of an off-the-cuff sort of response.
I would say definitely yes. There will be a Christian viewing these dialogues.
Sure.
Because first of all, as we all know, Carrie Lam is a Christian.
That's correct.
And then Chen Giman, he is a Christian as well.
That's correct.
So you know what, and then Wang Zifeng is a Christian as well.
Yeah, one of the things, just for people who are watching, we do take for granted that Catholics are Christians.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And I would see that this is in fact a dialogue between Christians in a public arena.
Say more.
I think this is really important because especially in the pro-government camp, they say so many people say they're Christian. Like Priscilla Leung, she said I'm a Christian, and then Carol Lam said I'm a Catholic. So now we're talking about whose God is the real God, the version of Christianity versus the version of Joshua Wong and OC's Christianity. So I think this is another underlay that we need to understand in this whole chess game.
Sure. Esther, did you get that?
And I think this will shape how the movement goes. And also we also need to bring in Wang Yukman and his idea of Christianity as well, and also Reverend Lam Guokzhang, Timothy Lam, and Reverend Timothy Lam, and also another major player, which people some don't really see it, Chen Dou. Pastor Chen Dou, he is a force in playing as well.
Yeah, certainly because of his involvement with St. Francis Chapel on the street in the Mong Kok.
Exactly, that's right.
But so, this is Abraham, you're presenting a sort of very deep reading, a deep grounded theological reading of tonight's dialogues. And Esther, I was wondering whether you got that sense as well, uh, or whether this sort of deep reading is apparent to the public.
I think I got this
Wait,
sense
Esther.
more. I'm sorry.
I don't think it's something that's apparent to the public. I think it's something that you have to do some more research about to actually uncover, to actually, again, find out about their religious background or religious understanding where they have proclaimed in public that, oh, I am a Christian, oh, I am a Catholic, or whatnot, and then be able to trace back and analyze their thoughts. I don't think most people have done that. Maybe except for you two, because you guys are actually really interested in this stuff.
Yeah, we're theology nerds.
Exactly.
But I mean, maybe I'll because Abraham sort of gave a sort of deep reading of the theological contestations in the ground here. I was wondering, whether you had any sort of gut reactions because you certainly were the were co-authors and co-signers of that letter that we put into the Vancouver Sun blog. And so I was wondering whether you had any sort of knee-jerk reaction, following what we did in Vancouver and then now listening to these talks.
So was that question for Abraham or for me again?
For you, Esther.
Sorry, can you rephrase that question?
Yeah. So basically, we made a very public Christian statement in the Vancouver Sun, and then right after that statement was released, we watched these talks, and certainly, within our own heads, the Christian thing is sort of also revolving, and so, what is do you have any sort of knee-jerk sort of Christian gut response to what you heard tonight?
I don't know if it's what I heard, but I think my knee-jerk response was more toward what CY Leung said today regarding uh, what CY Leung said regarding the poor and his opinions that the elite will be very, very worried if the poor are actually given a chance to voice their opinions. That made me have the knee-jerk reaction. Not so much the debates. I think the debates kind of affirmed that, as in it's affirmed to me that the government doesn't seem to care about the poor. So it was more or less based on this chief executive's comments, which are short. I don't know if it's short-sighted. It's definitely not compassionate.
I mean, one of the things that I thought of when I heard CY's comments, speaking both as a Christian and as somebody who has read the UN reports on migration, the International Organization for Migration's migration reports. Certainly, one of the things that the United Nations has been encouraging governments to do is to pass pro-poor policies, right? And this is a secular organization saying this. That pro-poor policies need to be passed in order to ensure social stability. Because unless pro-poor policies are passed, the level of social and economic polarization in any society will grow wider and wider, which will cause actual social and political unrest.
That's really yeah.
So, speaking as both a Christian and as a secular scholar, it's very interesting to hear that CY Leung's policies, as much as he talks about housing, are certainly not pro-poor.
No, it's not poor. Actually, he is. I think he showed his cards yesterday and on Sunday as well with the interview with Michael Ciccani. That was that, and then also the interview with Wall Street Journal and New York Times. He showed his cards, and in fact, if he wants the government to do that, I think that is not a problem because he has all the powers uh, uh, in effect.
Right.
So he's just say, well, we are not going to let any people. We, actually, I want to I mean, to be more fair for CY Learn, I think we should say the actual quote, which is, yeah, if there's a lot of popular candidate, then that means the policy will be leaning to the people who are poor.
Can you say that in
That's what he
Chinese?
said. What?
Could you say that in Cantonese?
No, no, no. It was part of the New York Times interview.
Oh, right. Yes.
It was part of the New York Times interview. So I think that is really significant. So he's showing his card right now. As a matter of fact, he's even worse than Dong Qihua or Donald Tsang, because I mean they did not admit that back then. They
Right.
did
I
not
mean,
say out
apparently
loud.
Donald Tsang was exposed for thinking that because of his collusion.
Those were exposed, but but he admitted it now.
Right.
So it's even worse.
Right.
And I would like to go back to my grounded theologies, the whole condensation theory as you read it. I think that is really significant because right now I think it's just the extension that we see how the church is reading Christianity and the association with social justice and poor and all the things.
So are we seeing a division within the church when we see these sorts of talks?
Yes.
Yes. I see that it's definitely a division in the church. Because I think, but the problem is either you are on God's side or you're not.
Esther, you also gave a very emphatic yes.
Of course. I mean, like Jesus was in solidarity with the poor. There's so many verses in the Bible about the poor. Um, what C.O. Lang said pissed a lot of people off, and I think as people who want to follow Christ, I think, sorry, pissed and following Christ probably don't go on the same sentence, but it just doesn't make any sense for us to actually just stand there or just sit and be still. I think it makes every sense to actually say something and be able to stand up. I'm really glad that we wrote that statement, that there's so many co-signers of what we published in the Vancouver Sun.
Hmm. How will these sorts
I
of
think that.
how will these sorts of
Keep going.
because some, you know, more privately, and I think we can put this on public record. You know, we have been saying that the umbrella movement in Hong Kong has actually caused a sort of political awakening among Chinese Canadians in Vancouver. Right? So even people that you don't see sort of watching politics and paying attention are now paying attention to the umbrella revolution, and because of that are now starting to pay attention to social and political issues that they weren't interested in before in Vancouver. So how will this, tentative thoughts, how will this sort of affect political practice in Vancouver?
I think for me, one thing is that it got me more aware of poverty issues in Vancouver, because again, like there's such a connection between me and Hong Kong, and actually realizing that there's what 1/5 of Hong Kongers are underneath the poverty line. I think. Don't quote me on that. It reminded me.
It's very hazy. I'll just cut in here and then I'll let you continue. It's very hazy in Hong Kong because there is actually, from what I remember from my research, there is actually no poverty line in Hong Kong. There's no line under which people can fall. So that 1/5 is people living in sort of underprivileged circumstances, but there's no line under which people can fall.
Great, thanks for clarifying. Um, I think for me, like it's allowed me to see the large gap between the wealthy and the poor in Vancouver, and to actually want to also to be able to support the people who are poor in Vancouver, however we define it. Because whether we like it or not in Vancouver, unless there's a spiritual awakening, where people are more generous, are more compassionate, this wealth gap will keep on expanding, and and unfortunately, because of the way that the systems of governments in Vancouver is run, it's always going to favor the elites. I mean, I was at the SRO Tenants Convention for the Downtown East Side just 2 days ago, and from the ruling party, Vision Vancouver, there was no one there that I recognized that attended that at all. The only person was actually only like a cardboard cutout mask of our mayor, Gregor Robertson. And to be able to actually see that, it's discouraging to know that people who are running for office weren't didn't know or didn't care about people in the downtown east side, or would only show up to events in the downtown east side or speak about the poor in downtown east side when it's convenient for them, and that's outrageous. Um, I'm hoping that more leaders in Vancouver will be able um, to stand up for the poor and realize that again what's happening in Hong Kong. Oh my gosh, my alarm clock just went off at 7 o'clock. Sorry. Sorry, one of you guys should probably talk. I got lost.
No, that's good. Abraham.
Okay, so I would like to jump in. I think okay, I'm going to jump in right now. I think what I see, there's a couple of things. I think I would rather to start with Oppenheimer Park right now. That would be a very interesting reading. For one, is the Occupy Oppenheimer Park, and with that comparison with the occupation of Admiralty and Causeway Bay and such, because I have a friend who is a reporter with City News. So she told me that actually there's some people who are really in need, but there's a lot of jerks in there as well. So that was really, so it wasn't very helpful to to that's in her opinion. She thinks that sometimes it's not very helpful to let them to occupy. So I think, but I would say that because the Occupy Mongkok and Central and Causeway Bay, it makes me to think about the whole social poverty issue as what Esther is saying. In a way, I mean, and and then as a realtor myself, I always see that what happens in Hong Kong today would happen in Vancouver in the future, because as the we have a pretty high Gini index as well. High Gini index as in Hong Kong, and then Vancouver is one of the most unaffordable city in the world to be living in or to purchase the house and purchase properties. I mean, 75% of all properties available in the market right now is unaffordable.
I mean, I've made the facetious claim on my blog that if there are political refugees that come from Hong Kong because of Occupy Central and now the Umbrella movement, they will be politically conscious refugees who would be more pro-democracy than the previous migration wave.
But
But
then
of course,
I
of course,
wonder,
this is a very facetious claim. So I'm happy to be refuted here.
yeah, you know what? I think I have to wonder whether Canada would take in any political refugees, especially nowadays. Canada has they're really cozy bedfellows with each other.
Hmm.
That is my major concern under Harper's government at this moment.
So you're talking about the FIFA agreement.
And yeah, yes. That agreement in a way shaping it defines how the Sino-Canadian relationship would lay out in the upcoming 10-15 years at least.
Hmm.
And also, Canada needs the Chinese money, especially in Vancouver.
Hmm.
We still, I mean, we're still looking for the Chinese money to come and invest.
Hmm. Hmm.
So you know what? That would be actually Vancouver would be in a way, I see it's kind of like Hong Kong that some people are just very politically uh, uh, apathetic. That's my reading of that because I think it has to do with. Now I want to bring back Jonathan because he's grounded. He's so his reading of that the people in the comfort in Vancouver, they're not going to care about the politics. I was only say, yeah, I would say some of them they don't really care about the politics because they just say, well, we have good things and here and there, and but yeah. So I mean, we're talking about the some of the immigrants come from China. They just like we just want to bring our money, bring all our black money just to come invest in the properties in here.
So are we saying that there are
Those
actually two
are
forces at work here? All right.
what?
Are we saying that there are actually two forces at work here? On the one hand, you're talking about the political apathy of some people who have a very privatized mentality when it comes to property
Yes,
investments, etc. But we're
yes.
also seeing what Esther was saying. We're also seeing the awakening of a generation of Chinese Canadians who care deeply about the poor. So are we seeing sort of both trends happening at the same time?
At the same time, and then also the third force, the immigrants. Remember Mina Wong? Mina Wong, who is representing the COP as the mayoral candidate for City of Vancouver. This is the third force, and also we need to mention Gabriel Yeo, who was representing NDP for many times. You have those people, and also Alice Wong who is already in the government right now. So we see the third force who are the very active participants from the older generation. They still at play. So we're talking about at least three different forces are playing the games
So
together.
what we're saying is that there's actually a live debate within Chinese Canadian communities
Yes,
in
that's
Vancouver
what I'm.
about sort of class, poverty, economic issues.
Well, of course, yes. I mean, with the classic interpretation of Bill Chiu, the classical, I mean, he is pretty much the representative from there. And then we have another, and to make things even broader, we have a really broad spectrum of the participants, including Leung Yinsing and his daughter, and with cultural CRLS, with all these organizations, they are actively participating in this public um, discourse or even station.
Or this public transnational sphere. Um, Esther, do you see this debate sort of playing out in sort of the Chinese Canadian community in Vancouver, or do you see something different from Abraham?
I think it varies. I can't say generally speaking that every Chinese Canadian is thinking about the same thing, is becoming more politically aware and active. Um, there is a certain percentage, from my perspective, people who have stronger ties to Hong Kong would be more sympathetic. Again, like you, me, Abraham, we have ties to Hong Kong and we maintain those ties. We have friends there. But it seems to me as if it's only us or people who are regularly plugged into the news or seem to be really concerned about, well, at least for the Christian community, really concerned about issues of social justice that are actively concerned. There are people who I've noticed who are Chinese Canadians who haven't tweeted or blogged or said anything about the protests at all. And so that's why I'd be really careful to say, oh, all Chinese Canadians have a great interest in the protests. It's not all of them, um, but I think that those um, have been who have been turned on, like their political thinking capacity, um, has they've definitely had some sort of an awakening, and I think that it's going to continue on, at least for for a period, and I'm hoping that whatever happens in Hong Kong will actually continue to. Hold on, my mom's here. 關門啊，阿媽，同緊朋友講嘢。 That's embarrassing. Okay. This is public. Okay. Yeah. I that's what I think. Um, Again, there's many different events that happen of late, many different opportunities for people to become more involved and active. And as what I'm saying, as more people are paying attention to Hong Kong, I think it's going to be inevitable that more people who are not caring will want to tune in and figure out what's going on. At least that's the sense that I'm getting.
So that's what we said in our statement. In our statement, we said that there are varying sides in this debate, and that that because of the constant barrage of public opinion about the umbrella movement, it's actually causing public opinion to be in the constant state of flux. And so one snapshot one day will not reflect the snapshot of another day. Any items to add? Abraham, you look like you're going to say something.
Yeah, actually, I would love to bring back the whole discussion back to Hong Kong. What is happening, like 3 hours ago?
Sure.
I think that is much more. I think that is more influential in terms of. I'd rather to focus on the debate itself today, just to discuss that. The debate itself, I think we are seeing how the government's officials. Remember Lau Gongwa, he has been silenced, and then also another guy, Edward Yuen, who is Eric Yao, he is working for the office of chief executive. So he was the director of the office of chief executive. So they both stay silent. So we see that, well, we know pretty much what is the government has in hand, and then I am wondering about the fate of CY Leung, because today he has been literally shown that he cannot negotiate. He has no power to negotiate. So it's only Carrie Lam who was the lead negotiator for the government. So I wonder what is going to happen next in the next round, if there's going to be next round of this of discussion. So I would love to hear from you, Esther and Justin. So what do you guys think?
Can I actually say he does have the power to negotiate, but he's not exercising it, and I think he's being a coward because he's putting out people out. It seems as if he's putting others out there who aren't given the power to make up laws and rules to speak apparently on behalf of him. But again, they don't have the permission to do that. And he really needs to show his face and actually engage with the public. I mean, we've seen in Vancouver parties that actually don't engage with the public, or at least a party that doesn't engage with the public, and they've been receiving a lot of negative comments that, hey, you know what, they have the power, they have the money, and they'll likely be reelected again. No names.
So I think, I think this speaks to why the protesters are demanding that CY Leung resign. Right? If indeed the people today can only make limited concessions because the power is not in their hands, then we have to figure out who the true puppet master is. And if that puppet master is not willing to give any ground, then, as Cardinal Zen says, this government is not interested in dialogue. As much as individual members of the government may be interested in dialogue, the government as a whole cannot dialogue without the guy on top making any concessions.
Hmm. That's a
Very
really
true.
good answer.
Who is
Um,
the puppet master?
Well, they say that Hong Kong has a high degree of autonomy, and this is actually something that CY Leung himself has said. He also has said that Beijing has given him absolute confidence uh, in handling the situation. So it seems to me that the ultimate puppet master in this particular situation um, may or may not be Beijing. You know, Carrie Lam certainly says that the puppet master is Beijing. Um, but we also know that there is a liaison between Beijing and the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region, and that liaison has gone on record saying that he was the one who brought Hong Kong and the PRC, National People's Congress, into closer relations. So if that
Everyone's
isn't
hero.
right, so if that isn't an admission of the erosion of one country, two systems, I don't know what else is.
I
I think
wonder if this I wonder if if there's any solution to what's happening to Hong Kong right now. I mean, again, sure, maybe it seems that both sides aren't quite budging. Yes, another report is being written, but it seems still rather stalemate-ish to me. What do you guys think? Is there going to be any progress?
I mean, I think Alex Chow raised a very valid concern at the press conference. What he said was that, a report will be written, we just don't know what the report will say. Right? And so I think that's actually a very important distinction to make. Yes, it seems like a concession, but what if the report really slams the protest?
you know what? That's the problem. I think that's why I am much more concerned about what the government will do because if they say if the report is slamming the protesters, then actually is not having the cause. It's not having the cause, but it is causing more ruckus in Beijing. And also, I would say that the puppet master at this moment is more from the Beijing because Beijing does have a base in Shenzhen right at this moment, and then every day there are busload of the high-ranking officials from Hong Kong going to Beijing. I mean, no, going to Shenzhen just to listen, just to gauge the whole situation. So they pretty much they're taking the commands from Beijing government at the outposts of Shenzhen at this moment to
It's
deal
a
with
very,
the situation.
yeah, it's an important clarification to make.
And this is also on public record as well is part as it has been reported by New York Times.
Yes.
So these are things that we need. These are all the minuscule details that we need to be really taking care of. We need to we need to take it to heart in order to understand or in order to have a graph theories to establish in terms of that. So what I am much more interested to see is what will happen before the next round of negotiation. Personally, I am worried that there will be another round of clashes in Mongkok and Admiralty and to a certain extent in Causeway Bay as well. I'm worried that CY Leung will send out mobs right now. I mean, maybe tonight or tomorrow, just to clear up the space. That's my major concern.
Haven't the mobs sort of dwindled down in the past few days, and it's mainly been police that's been more prominent?
Okay, Esther, I could not hear you.
Oh, sorry. Hasn't it I muted my mic. Hasn't
Okay,
it
now
been
it's unmuted. That's good. Thank you.
haven't the mobs been dwindling down in the past few days and the police presence have been more prominent? So do we expect to see more mob presence? I mean, they have been used as a tool before, but there's also very, very bad publicity surrounding them. And
Okay, wait, guys. Okay.
Okay.
Uh,
Uh,
I think he disappeared.
I think he disappeared. I do have to go quite soon.
Yeah, I know. It's almost 7:30.
Yeah.
I wish we did talk about a little bit more about Canada, though, and at least Chinese Canadians in Vancouver. I know that Abraham wanted to change the topic. Um, and unfortunately, I we were going somewhere with that thread, and I wanted to input something, but I don't remember what it was.
Okay. I think that was a very strong conversation as well, because in a sense, what right do we have to comment on Hong Kong outside of our situated position? Because we really are situated in Vancouver. So I think we need to be not only honest about that, but also embrace that as our position, as where we're situated. And that's, sort of where we are getting to know Hong Kong from.
That makes tons of sense.
Yeah. Because I don't see our role as necessarily just as pundits on Hong Kong. I don't even see our role as pundits, right? Really, what I see our role is as just citizens having a conversation.
Apparently, Abraham left because it's press time.
Okay, that's fine. You can we can watch the press conference. And I will go work on my part.
Sorry, what'd you say?
I will go work on my PowerPoint.
Okay, sounds good. We'll talk later then.
Okay. I think this is a very strong beginning to the conversation.
To the what?
To the conversation.
To the JukeWorks conversation?
Yeah.
Okay, I think so too. I can't wait to have other people also involved. I think they'll be able to provide a broader perspective when they join in.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's talk later.
Okay.
Good luck.
Thanks for this.
Bye.